All right, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the first episode of the sort of extended version of the Roses with Empathy podcast. So, for those of you who are new to Rose Gold Empathy and don't really know who I am or why I'm making this video right now, don't worry, I'm about to explain everything to you. So, my name is Rose Gold Empathy. This is sort of my stage name as a poet, but also sort of right now I'm experimenting a lot with making music. I'm not a rapper, but an artist. But just because of sort of my style of music, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would hear it and say that at least 80% of the songs are considered rap. And I even labeled them as such because it's hard to sort of convey that, I'm doing spoken word on a beat that I think is really hyphy, right? People don't understand that. So I go under this sort of I'm a rapper label, but this is really what the channel is for, to actually sort of unearth some of the things that I don't discuss on my Instagram, for example. Which, if you want to follow me, it's @_Rose Gold Empathy. And there, I post daily content, life advice, my own thoughts and musings, but I really decided after, looking at my analytics and talking to different supporters that I think people like to see my face when I talk, and they also like to sort of know more about what I've said in my songs or my poems or my posts or my stories. So I'm doing what y'all asked for, and I'm making sort of this, kind of bridge between my podcast and my IG story, like YouTube videos in which I don't speak Arabic, because I have another channel where I only speak Arabic in those videos, and that's sort of entertaining for some people, but I don't talk about the topics that I talk about in English because I don't have the vocabulary, and also it wouldn't sort of be appealing to my Arabic speaking audience, right? So I think this is a great innovation, and I'm grateful for the feedback for those of you who do listen to my work and want to see me get bigger and get more traction, because that's just the beginning. Here you are, welcome, thank you. And so let's get right into it. Today's episode is really sort of a recap on the first episode of the first season of the Roses with Empathy podcast, which I talked about myself, Rose Gold Empathy. The title is Rose Gold Empathy. And I talked about, what does Rose Gold Empathy mean, and sort of why am I making a podcast, and who am I, right? So it's really been, it's really been a journey so far since that first episode. I think that came out 2 months ago. So since then, I've sort of been more carefully defining myself and redefining myself, because if you've sort of been following from the podcast, I'm really big on looking at the antithesis of all of my beliefs and arguments and claims, right? Because I think that makes it all that much more enthralling, or fun to sort of see just how strong you can make your arguments against something, because everyone has a view on something. And I also wanted to note, though, quickly, that the goal of this channel, or this sort of series, is really to not put such a force on like things being scripted, because there is definitely structure to the podcast where I stay on a certain track, but for this, like, all sort of tangents are welcome. All sort of just random thoughts are welcome here, because I think that's the best way to get to really know someone, is to see what they say when they're not on some sort of rigid path, right? So that's what I plan to do here. So if something sort of become incoherent at any point, that's normal. That's the way I think. So I'm excited for those of you who do support, and let's get right back into it. I just had to make that disclaimer. So the biggest sort of takeaway I wanted to give out in that first episode about Rose Gold Empathy was that I'm a very empathetic person, and my reasoning for creating the sort of content that I do, which is very centered around like mental health and Black women empowerment and everything like that, just security and self, is because I'm seeing a lot of lack of empathy in the world, I think. More generally, I'm seeing a lack of humanity. And I've always sort of been privy to this sort of thing. But at the same time, I convinced myself that I couldn't make content that I was seeing on like YouTube with millions of views and everything. And I'm working towards that goal of reaching a fan base of that size, but that's not my sort of main desire at this point. Right now, I'm just trying to get a message across. And even if I have like one person that watches this video or two people that watch this video, it's sort of like a huge blessing to have anybody sort of picking up on these things that really need to be picked up on. And I'm doing it for free a lot of the time. So that's really my goal. And as it relates to my empathy, it's like I also at the same time don't just want to spew out information for people to reiterate, because I think this is what happens a lot in the woke community. Like, we'll have an idea or we'll notice a phenomenon and then make it a point to sort of really drive home this idea that because we said it, the job is done. Like, because we put the message out there, it's done. And I know it's way more to success in reaching people than just putting out content. You have to promote yourself. Really, most important would be marketing, which is not promotion, which is trying to find out like who your audience is, who really wants to hear what you have to say. So I've really been defining and redefining myself during this sort of period in between the first episode and now. And it's just been really phenomenal to see that, like, I still see a lack of empathy, but the people that I come across that are feeling my same sentiment are still doing their best despite like the circumstances that we see. And I mean, let's be honest, like, really this sort of period of restriction of sort of day-to-day activities caused by, you know, certain viruses in the open is sort of clearly an indication that we don't know how to, be with ourselves. Like, and I'm saying not the sort of lockdown itself, but more so our reaction to it. Like, it's really been an eye-opening experience, I think, for a lot of us to sort of see that, you know, actually a lot of people are lonely and hurting, but they didn't notice until all of the people they saw every day was, you know, they couldn't hang out for a few weeks. Because that's really about how long people listen to the restrictions, let's be honest. And that's not to say that, like, it shouldn't be expected that we would have these sort of reactions. I think this is definitely a period where they are trying to desensitize us. And they have always been. It's just become more and more palatable and normalized. I go on my Instagram and it's like live leaks on there, like, seriously. And it just shows you like whose algorithms are working in their favor and whose aren't, and who's being shown and who's not. So even if this video gets hidden, I get shadow banned or something, I know that what I'm saying is sort of not novel. You feel me? So anyways, though, when I was talking about rose gold empathy, I was sort of saying that the rose sort of symbolized new beginnings and sort of growing from my circumstances. And I said the gold was sort of like, luxury and wealth, just trying to attract what I need to bring me to that next point in my life. And so the question became, but isn't it rose gold and not rose and gold? Well, it depends on how I'm feeling. Like, I even change the title casing of my stage name all the time. So sometimes it's rose gold, and when it's rose gold, it sort of just is a mix between the rose and gold, and not sort of, it doesn't say anything about any sort of metaphors behind rose gold itself, if that makes sense. So I also sort of was talking a lot about why I feel empathy is so important. And I sort of tried to distinguish it from sympathy, which I think sometimes the two are conflated or used as having like the same meaning. And I view empathy as more so not like this sort of, I see somebody in need or I see somebody not in need, and I don't feel overjoyed for them or deeply saddened by them because like I feel sorry for them, but more so just because I genuinely like I can feel that they are not receiving what they want to receive, and maybe not what they need to receive either. And seeing that does something to my spirit. Like it shakes me to my core. And like, so the biggest sort of thing right now is this debate about whether empaths are sort of, I don't know, gatekeeping, in the sense that everybody, if they see like a dog whining or whimpering, is going to feel sad on like a PETA commercial, right? But I feel like that's the same sort of logic that goes with people who conflate sadness and depression. Like, we don't all have deep episodes in which we isolate ourselves and we lose interest in everything and we don't want to interact and we have weight fluctuation. Like, but it's more likely that we all do have this sort of feeling where our face droops down a little bit and we might tear up. Like, it's a major difference, and I feel like it's not to be confused. So with that same like distinction being made between sadness and depression in terms of severity, like when it comes to like sort of empathy and just sort of, I don't know how to even categorize what lack of empathy would be on a less severe scale, I guess just not relating to people. It's sort of different. Like if I say like I have deep empathy and someone says, well, it's normal that you start crying after watching someone die in a movie, it's like, but it's different. Like it's, even after that movie, like I'm still thinking about the character development and all the things that could have been, and I don't think that that's a universally shared experience. And if it was, I don't think we would have so many people behind this sort of empathy movement. So that was just my response to that sort of argument, albeit I think it's a very like interesting one. So that's sort of pretty much all I wanted to say in this introductory episode. For the next episodes, the structure is sort of going to be like very informal. I'm just going to talk. I might bring up different themes in different episodes, but since I've sort of established who I am and you guys can sort of get a feel after this video, which is like almost 13 minutes right now, how I talk about topics, even though I really didn't get into anything yet. You can decide like whether this is the right fit for you or you prefer the podcast or something,